Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, Context is Everything Media Network founder and CEO John Michael, that's me, is reading a textbook. Again, this is a textbook from 1940. Sorry, coffee ground in my French press coffee went down my throat. This is a textbook from 1940, before the United States entered World War II, and this is American history. Chapter 11, Our Nation at Work. Coal, iron, and oil. Changing conditions. Even after the Civil War, people lived very differently from the way in which we live today. 1940. Things that are common to us were unknown to our grandfathers. Great changes were to take place. Buildings were not yet very tall before steel was used in buildings. People did not have many different kinds of foods before foods were canned. Homes and streets were poorly lit before electric lights were invented. How did people travel about before automobile and airplane? Many changes have taken place in our daily American lives during the last century. First, let us study about the things we get from the earth, the minerals. Then we can learn about things that grow in the earth, our foods. At the same time, we will learn the history of how man has used these things in his industries and through his inventions. Coal. Father James Marquette noticed coal in the Mississippi Valley. A few years later, the Franciscan Father Louis Hennepin wrote of a coal mine near the Illinois River. About 1750, a small soft coal mine was opened near Richmond, Virginia. This soft coal was used principally by blacksmiths. It was called Richmond coal. The use of coal was slow in spreading. People would not use coal in their stoves. Who was going to try to burn black stones? The steam engine was not known at the time. What little industry existed was moved by water power, particularly in New England. Then came the invention of the steam engine. The steam engine made possible the factory. Soon more power was needed than could be supplied by waterfalls. Steam power was used and coal was burned to make the steam. The coal mining industry in America rapidly increased. Two different kinds of coal had been discovered. There was a hard coal called anthracite. It was found only in a small part of Pennsylvania. There was a soft coal called bituminous. It was found in large fields in several parts of the country. States like West Virginia and Illinois have immense fields of bituminous or soft coal. It is also found in the Rocky Mountains district. The United States has by far the greatest amount of coal of any country in the world as of 1940. Coal mining has become one of our chief industries. Besides, its use as a fuel, coal has many other uses. It may be heated and turned into various kinds of gas. Hundreds of the most useful chemicals, dyes, and medicines are obtained from these gases. Iron and steel. Twin giants. Iron and steel are two giants that have made possible the modern way of living as of 1940. Today, we look about in us and see big ships and heavy auto trucks, great bridges and tall buildings, and thousands of other things made of steel. America was built upon some of the greatest steel mills and factories in the world. If we look back to colonial days, we recall that only iron works were small forges and tiny foundries. Shipbuilding was one of the first industries to need things made of iron. Nails, bolts, anchors, and chains were needed. Cannons and shot were also needed. iron works commenced to supply New England shipbuilders. The ore from which the iron was made was found in bogs, B-O-G-S, and swamps. Before the Revolution, iron making was well started. Valley Forge, so famous in the Revolution, received its name from an iron forge. The English iron masters objected to the homemade American product. They wanted to supply colonials with their ironware. Parliament passed a law limiting American iron manufacture. Parliament acted too late. The iron works had fortunately been established. Fortunately been established. American Revolution could hardly have succeeded had it not been for these thriving foundries and forges. When America became a nation, the iron industry continued to expand. Cincinnati, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania were early iron centers. Steel. Steel is iron that has been hardened and made stronger. As modern industry and invention advanced, the demand for steel became greater. The value of steel had been known for many centuries. Steel was difficult to make. When a simpler and better method of making it was found, the use of steel spread far and wide. The men who helped to find this method were William Kelly in the United States and Henry Bessemer in England. Skyscrapers. One of the most interesting uses of steel is in the building of skyscrapers, as very tall buildings are called. Before the days of cheap steel, buildings could be built only as high as the stone or brick walls could support. This was seldom more than 8 or 10 stories high. If you'll recall from previous episodes of Context is Everything Media Network, by the way, before the year 1908, here's a fun fact for you folks. Before the year 1908, the tallest man-made structure in the Americas was a Mayan pyramid. Before 1908, the tallest man-made structure in the Americas was a Mayan pyramid. In 1908, New York City cut the ribbon at the iron-bound building, the one that's a weird catty corner shape, which was the tallest building in the Americas, North, Central, and South, as of 1908. In about 1888, Chicago builders commenced to put up buildings with steel skeletons. In this way, very high buildings could be built. American skyscrapers in time became famous throughout the world. Steel and food. Food in cans. It is possible to roll and press steel into very thin sheets. Large and small cans can be made from this steel sheet. The oil industry needed metal cans or containers in many sizes. This demand was met by factories where metal cans were manufactured. From the earliest times in American homes, it has been the custom for women and girls to make preserves and jellies. At the end of the fruit season, berries, peaches, apples, pears, and other fruits were cooked and then sealed in jars. These preserves of fruit or pickled foods were rarely sold and were not shipped great distances. American businessmen began to think of using cans for food. Then the food could be kept a long time, shipped great distances, and yet remain fresh. A way was found to make food cans cheaply and well. The sheet steel was plated with tin. It also so that it would not rust. The cans were tightly sealed so that no air could enter. Not only fruits and vegetables, but fish, meats were canned. Then the canned goods business grew very important. Luther Burbank. Better fruits and fairer flowers. What we have learned about canning fruits and vegetables brings to mind the name Luther Burbank. That is because Burbank was able to do an astonishing thing. He was actually able to give us new and better fruits and vegetables. Besides giving us better things to eat, he also was able to give us more beautiful flowers to admire. Luther Burbank's boyhood. Luther Burbank was born in Lancaster, Massachusetts in 1849. He was the 10th child. The place where he grew up was very beautiful. Tall elm trees lined the streets of the village where he lived. The country nearby had green meadows through which ran singing brooks. Luther Burbank's toys were flowers. He tells of us himself how much he loved them. His boyhood was very happy. He had about him the things that he loved most: the trees, flowers, springs, and small wild animals. Burbank's early struggles. Luther Burbank's days in school were happy, but he could not remain there very long. He went to work for an uncle in a woodworking factory. Here Burbank earned 50 cents a day and spent the entire 50 cents for board. As he had to pay board on Sunday, but did not work that day, Burbank's week wages netted a loss of 50 cents. The dust of the factory injured his health. This made matters worse. Burbank's 17 acres. Luther Burbank left the factory and took up gardening. He began to learn a great deal about seeds and plants. Burbank had his first success when he grew an excellent potato. It is now called the Burbank potato and grows all over the world. Burbank made little money in spite of the success of the Burbank potato. He decided to move to California. Burbank in California. Luther Burbank arrived in California owning only the clothes on his back, a few books, and his precious seeds. He settled in Santa Rosa, a place named in honor of St. Rose of Lima. His first year's work in California, he, as a seed man, netted him $15.20. His second year brought him $84. The young man kept on trying to succeed. Burbank carried on many experiments with trees and flowers in California. He grafted one tree on another. That is, he took the bud of a fruit and joined it to the stem of another plant. That resulted in a new and better kind of tree. With another way Burbank worked was to choose the finest fruit on a tree and plant its seed. Other excellent trees grew from these seeds. Again, the best fruit would be selected and its seeds planted. That makes sense. This was done many times over until much improved fruit or flower was obtained. Burbank also would watch the growing things and choose any unusual from that might appear. Burbank was able to help nature to give us better plants and better trees. Burbank's wish. Among Burbank's greatest successes is the walnut tree, which he called Paradox. The Shasta daisy, with the large gay flowers, which brighten many gardens, is one of Burbank's finest plants. A cactus without thorns is another. Before his death, people from all parts of the world visited him. Luther Burbank once said, "I shall be content if, because of me, there shall be better fruits and fairer flowers." His wish came true. The petroleum industry. If you've made it this far in this video, listening, please subscribe or consider it. The petroleum industry. Petroleum. Context is Everything Media Network. Founder and CEO John Michael says, thank you. Petroleum is an oil which comes from the ground. The word petroleum is taken from two Latin words, which mean rock, oil. From the oil, we get an amazing number of important products. Petroleum makes a splendid fuel. Railway locomotives, steamships, and many kinds of steam plants use oil as fuel. Then again, when petroleum is refined, it gives us gasoline. The oil, when it comes petroleum is refined. Okay. Oil, when it comes from a well, is called crude oil. Certain impurities are taken out of it. It is then said to be refined. You do not need to be told that gasoline gives power to run automobiles, airplanes, and gas engines of all sorts. There are numberless useful products made from petroleum. The discovery of oil. The first mention of petroleum in America was made by a Franciscan priest. In 1632, Father D'Alon visited what we call the oil springs of New York. Later on, people in Pennsylvania came to know about oil. They often saw small ponds where the oil had oozed out of the earth. Some thought it would be useful as medicine, but no one seems to have realized its full value. Slowly, people began to find out that this oil could be burned in lamps and give good light. More oil was needed. A number of rich men wanted to go in the oil business. They sent E.L. Drake to Pennsylvania. Drake was to search out places where he saw signs of oil. He was then to bore a deep hole in the ground. This was called drilling an oil well. The picture shows Drake at his first well he drilled in Titusville, Pennsylvania, in 1859. It produced a good supply of oil. Many uses for this sort of oil were soon found. There's the oil well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. During the Civil War, it was found to be it was good to make machinery run smoothly. It seemed as though oil's greatest usefulness had been discovered when a way to refine oil was to make kerosene. This refined oil or kerosene could be used for lamps, so a better way to light homes had been found. Old ways of lighting in homes. Until the drilling of oil wells, most people depended upon candles or whale oil lamps to light their homes. Candles gave an exceedingly poor light. Lamps burning whale oil were not much brighter than candles. Besides, whale oil was fairly expensive because the supply of whales was growing smaller. Captains of whaling ships had to sail further and further from New England ports to search for whales, so kerosene lamps became very popular. It was also discovered that kerosene could be used as fuel for heating and cooking. Demand for oil. As the demand for oil increased, many wells were sunk in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. There was a big demand for oil, and those who had it to sell became rich. Men rushed to the oil fields as they had rushed to the gold fields. People even came to call oil liquid gold. Rockefeller's career. John D. Rockefeller was among the first to realize the great wealth could be made from the oil business. When he died, he was one of the richest men in the world. Rockefeller was from a farm in New York. When he was still small child, his family moved to Cleveland. During the Civil War, Rockefeller went into the provisions business. He sold meat, flour, food for the army. He made money in this venture, but his greatest profits were yet to come. It was the oil business that made Rockefeller a millionaire many times over. Rockefeller and oil. With a man named Andrews, Rockefeller commenced a deal in oil. The firm Rockefeller and Andrews brought a crude oil as it came from the wells and refined it in their own oil refinery. Rockefeller made so much money this way that he was able to buy his own competitors. Those he could not buy out, he forced out. Soon he controlled all oil refineries of Cleveland. Rockefeller was not satisfied. In 1882, he controlled almost all the oil refinery business in the country. His oil business was called Standard Oil Company. Oil in America. The oil business started in Pennsylvania, but today the state produces only a small part of what is used. The millions of automobiles in our country use the tremendous amounts of gasoline. Oil was searched for and found in California, in Texas, and Oklahoma, and in other parts of America. Thousands of men engaged drilling wells, refining and selling oil. Great pipelines carry the oil long distances from the wells to refineries. The map shows the largest oil areas and most important pipelines. Tank ships and tank cars are also used to carry important products. And this is all as of the year 1940. Thank you. God bless. Goodbye. Please subscribe if you made it this far.